What's up, everybody? Johnny Disc Golf back with off-season content once again. This time I am joined by Mason Ford and Miss Valerie Mandujano. How we doing?
We're doing good.
Doing good. Excited to be back on.
Yeah, I'm excited to get back doing it. It's been like so long. The season, I'm sure you can attest, like bogs us all down. The travel, the day in, day out of the play. So the off season is so refreshing. We can, at least myself, I can start to do projects like this. But, turn to you. How's the off season been? It was a long, grueling season. I'm sure it's restful, relaxing.
I honestly feel like it's been the opposite. Like I feel like restful, yes, when it comes to the traveling part of disc golf, but like nonstop.
Yeah.
At least for me in that aspect, just because it's like planning the wedding, which it's stressful to a degree. I think it's stressful as much as you want it to be stressful. Thankfully, I have a little more help. But it's like trying to get better, but also trying to rest and trying to find that balance. And then it's also like, well, what can I do to make myself better as a player, but not only that, but as a person. So I feel like it's a constant go with both of us.
I totally agree. I feel like we felt like we were going to have all this time when we got back, because it's like we went from playing back-to-back, a month back-to-back weekends of events and traveling and preparing for them as best as we can, to, we're going to have all this free time in the off season. And then we get back and it's like Val said, trying to find that balance between playing just enough, focusing on, certain things that we wanted to focus on in the off season. And then, there's always the unpredictable family issues that come up. And then there's planning for the wedding. And then it just seems like everything gets thrown at you as soon as you feel like you have time.
It's so funny. It is like that, though. It's like, all, at least speaking for me, like my family, my friends, they're all kind of like waiting. I get back from the off season and all of a sudden it's like, we're going to travel to see my brother in Tahoe. Then we'll go up to see here, all the stuff we've been saving. So I totally empathize with you on that one. I can imagine it's been like a million miles an hour. You mentioned it, though, the wedding, it's coming up. I feel like I saw a social post that said you guys would be married before the season started. Is that true?
Yep.
February 2nd.
So talk to me about that process. What's that been like? That's something we don't hear a lot from disc golfers,
Yeah. I personally am not a big like party person, or I hate being the center of attention. So this is like focused on me. And thankfully Alexis knows me better than I know myself. So I can kind of like lean on her for like what I want. But when the questions come like, well, what do you want for your wedding? It's like, I don't know. Like, I had to take a minute to sit there and actually like do research and like think about what I want. I personally don't want a big wedding. I want something small, intimate, where I get to see family again, but I'm also not breaking the bank at the same hand. I just don't think personally, I don't like spending a lot of money on one day. It's very obviously special, but I feel like that's the vows that are going to be the most special to me. But it's been fun. I've gotten to like go dress shopping with my mom, my sister, and my aunt. And it was just little moments that I'm going to cherish forever. So those are special. What about you?
With the whole wedding planning, I'm not that big into designing things. So kind of like I was intimidated right off the bat. Like as soon as we went and, looked at a couple of venues, it was kind of like, I'm already out of my comfort zone. And it's not so much of like the comfort zone of like, I'm getting married, I'm nervous. It's like, no, I couldn't be more excited for it. I'm more of like the designing and decorating. That's not my thing.
And like the difference between this and that, it's like, it's the frills on the napkin look great. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to get off this topic in a second, but one of the most interesting nuggets from this wedding narrative is, what do we do with the last name? Traditionally, female takes the male's last name. I'm not saying that that's what's probably going to happen, right? Valerie Jenkins, she didn't take Doss. Now, Mason Mandujano has a nice ring to it. It's untraditional, but it's good.
That's a joke running in her family.
Yeah.
So bad.
So we've talked about this a lot, and Mason was actually the first to approach me about it. And he was like, now I'm not against you keeping your last name. I think if anything, I like that idea of you keeping your last name, because I realized like how much respect you have towards it, how much you work for it. And I think that I'm going to keep my last name just because of the reasons that Mason mentioned. And I'm very thankful that he understands that. It's just because I put so much time and effort into people knowing my last name. And I just kind of feel like for me to go and change it, within a year and a half of being on the tour is just not something I want to do right now. Maybe in the future, if I think about it more and it's something I want to do, but as of right now, I'm going to keep my last name.
No, I respect it. Honestly, it's kind of like, not to keep going down this road, but like Macy Walker, Macy Villa-Diaz, maybe if she was 2 years into touring and had won a couple of events, maybe it would have been a different conversation. But no, I appreciate it. So Valerie Mandujano, we're looking out next year, no matter what. I love it.
Yep.
So let's get to maybe the reason for the season is the off season and big moves. You guys both made a post independently, but on the same day. So, what do you know? That you were both leaving Dynamic Discs. Mason, you can come out and announce your sponsorship a little bit earlier than Valerie. So I want to take a second and kind of dive into that right now. It's a Texas company. You want to talk about it? Announce it?
So for 2023, I will be representing Mint Discs. I signed a 2-year contract with them. It's a company that kind of started in Texas when I was first coming up in Texas, however you really want to word it. I think they released their first mold in 2017 called the Alpha. And that was the first year that I actually played my first ever open event. So playing with some of the players in Texas and them throwing them for the first time and me kind of getting to throw it a couple times here and there and, check out this new disc that's out. And I feel like it really brings me closer to Texas disc golf in a way. Being all the players on the team, even the owners, I've known since I started playing in Texas, Zach and Guy, the 2 owners, in 2018, when I first kind of jumped on the tour of Texas, I played with him, back-to-back weekends here and there around at the Texas B tiers, A tiers. And a lot of the team members kind of watched me grow as a player throughout the years. So I feel like it really brings me an at-home feeling and it brings me closer to Texas. And, I feel like it gives me a little added extra motivation, being the face of, a smaller company.
Yeah, that's actually kind of a point that I wanted to dive in a little bit. Like, Dynamic Discs, they have that family feel, they have a good culture there, but, you aren't going to be the face of the franchise when you have Ricky Wysocki on the team as well and others, but he's kind of he's that guy. What's it like, or what's the difference in, both negotiating with a smaller company like this and like the respect level or the relationship that you have with the crew? I mean, I know obviously you're local, so that helps, but what's that been like?
As for like the negotiating side of it, I feel like we were both on the same track from start to finish. I feel like we both had a goal. We both kind of fit each other's, marketing scheme, business scheme. I feel like we both had the same idea for each other of what we could both accomplish with each other. As for, what was the other part of the question?
Just what's the relationship like with a company when you're the guy, right? Because when you're with Ricky, it's like, oh, hey, Mason, how are you? Hey, Ricky, come on in. It's just a different thing. We can try and say everyone's treated the same, but it just likely isn't. So how has that been like being the guy? James Conrad went to MVP and he just said it was a totally different atmosphere being one of one compared to one of 20,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that different to me. If anything, I kind of like having that role, and I feel like it holds me more accountable as a player. And maybe my work ethic in the off season, and even a role model to the rest of the team and the players, and even Zach and Guy. Like I really feel like it holds me more accountable, and I really like that feeling.
And honestly, for me, like being on the sidelines, just watching everything, you could see like the relationship that they are building. It's a lot closer than a bigger company. And you could tell like they both value their company and they cherish it, but they also value and cherish Mason as a player. And I think it's a really good relationship, and it's a great fit for both of them.
No, honestly, I love it. And it really, it marks like another step in the direction of not just having, 3 or 4 major manufacturers sponsor every player playing.
Mhm.
Between the Thought Space, everybody getting announced for Thought Space, Lone Star, Infinite Discs in the past couple of years. Like, I really love seeing just the more parity with sponsorships.
Mhm.
Everybody out there can find which company most fits them, and whose ideals or whose molds even fit them. I want to talk about that a little bit too, because mint isn't like in California. I don't see a lot of mint
Mhm.
discs. It's kind of like Prodigy is the same thing. You just don't see a lot of Prodigy discs. But like, talk about some of the new molds that you're going to be throwing. Talk about, maybe, is there anything that you've found that like maybe you didn't have, or you felt like an uncomfortable slot in your bag that now you have a disc that's like, so great.
I think honestly, they have some of the traditional style like fairways that I really love. Like the Diamondback is like that TL3 getaway
Yep.
style flyer, straight. You can kind of work it as you want. The Alpha is their, straight to overstable fairway. I feel like they have that covered really well. I'm a huge fairway thrower. But the disc that's probably changed my game the most is with DD. I never really found a putter that I like really vibed with and clicked with. But the Bullet, it's I think it's their second putter in their line to come out. It's more of like a low profile, kind of like a pier kind of feel, but a little bit more shallow. And I've never really found a putter that I really liked to throw, but I've really, really enjoyed throwing it over these last couple of weeks. I feel like it's just a putter that I finally have confidence in throwing.
I love it. Honestly, like, just speaking for myself, that's my number one favorite shot to throw. Like a slow putter shot, for some reason, just tickles me on the inside more than like any other like long 500-foot, 400-foot shot. Just like a nice controlled putter shot. So I love it. So mint, from my understanding, mint they don't have like a full, super full lineup, right? So what is the situation with throwing other companies' discs? How does that work with your situation specifically?
So I do have an open bag. But at some point in the year, they can, make it a partial open bag where I have to carry, X amount of molds and X amount of mint molds. But for the most part, I feel like they honestly don't have all that many, I guess you'd call it, holes in the lineup. For the most part, I feel like I can bag 90% of their molds and go and compete.
What I mean, you just dropped a little bit of a bomb on me. Open bag. I feel like that's like the phrase everyone's looking to hear. Like, oh my gosh, they can throw buzzes, they can throw this, they can throw that. Like, give me 1 or 2 discs from other manufacturers that you're stoked on right now, if there's any. And that's okay to be like, I'm a company man, I throw mint only, baby.
What am I throwing right now?
I think he's still going through like the trials of trying different ones. Like last night, as an example, I went to go grab my brother-in-law some discs, and he went with me. And then we start looking through old boxes, and we found PO3s and his Coyotes. Personally, I'm excited to see him test those again and see if those fit back in his bag, just because I knew he loved them so much when we were playing. I don't know. I think you have put like, I think 1 or 2 destroyers. But again, it's all testing stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if like a set in stone thing.
Yeah. So we're like, kind of like you said, it's been a mile a minute, fast and furious this whole offseason, even though it feels like we should be breaks. I know we're like 6 weeks away from All-Stars, I think, maybe even less at this point. And then 1 week after that, Vegas, boom, 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 the season starts. How do you get yourself into a rhythm with newer discs or new obligations when it's not like on October, whatever, 20th, you put all the old discs away and you started grinding on new one? Like, there's only 6 weeks left, and you don't really have it like locked in right now. So how do you balance that?
I feel like a lot of field work. I mean, it's a must. It's one thing working on form, throwing into a net, the rest of the beginning of the off season. And then as soon as you kind of figure out who you're going to be with, or, I'm with the same company that I can try to beat in some more molds. I feel like a lot of field work, a lot of repetition, a lot of testing different angles, nose angles, release angles out of the hand. And I feel like that's just the best way to go and work new
Yeah.
things in the bag and figure, what can I throw from a different company that this company may not offer, or, slots that you may have to fill.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you're going to be like locked in by the time, let's just say, Vegas comes along? Or do you think it's going to be like, I hear it's very common for players to like have 70% grasp on what they're throwing and how their discs are going to fly. But then like the first 6 tournaments or so of the new sponsorship will be like field, like actually real world testing and getting the angles down and like the tournament juice when you throw it just a little harder than you normally would.
I feel like last year I kind of ran into the same issue, obviously, with DD, and I've never thrown anything other than Innova at that time. And I feel like I adjusted really well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like as of right now, I feel like I could go and compete with that same bag that I have, the bag that I currently have with Mint.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, like you said, it's a different story when you go into the real world. But right now I feel really confident with it.
No, that's great. And so you kind of mentioned that you had a similar experience going into last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, both of you did, but we'll like keep it to you right now. It was a pretty quick turnaround between, you joined DD last year. There was some fanfare. It obviously wasn't the more promoted of the 2 or multiple signings that they had, but, for all intents and purposes, you guys had a great year. So, I do have to ask, why after only 1 season are you, both choosing to move on?
Sorry, I had like a cough attack.
Oh, you're good.
I heard all of it. I think it was more just us growing as players and growing as, people individually. I don't think people expected our games to grow as fast and quickly as it did on tour. So I feel like we just didn't see the same eye to eye when it came to our future.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. And I think that, I don't think anyone expected 2 Elite Series victories and on podium. I don't even know the exact numbers, but a lot of it, Tour Championship final round. This was like absolutely a breakout season for you. So I honestly, I appreciate and respect like making moves when you have to. Really, it really comes down to that. Now, Mason is announcing today. Valerie not announcing today. That would, to me, suggest that they're 2 different companies that you guys are being sponsored by. So my main question is not who are you being sponsored by, Val, but was there a goal to be sponsored by the same company? How did you guys go about deciding like, or being okay with not being sponsored by the same company? It seems like such a good fit, you guys on the same team last year.
I think it's just something that happens. It's like we plan to go to the same college, but realistically we're 2 different people. And it's like, well, I might get accepted at this college and you may not. So it's always that gamble, I feel like, no matter what company we go to our sponsorships. And I just felt like Mint was a perfect fit for Mason. And it was something that he truly like wanted and he looked into. And I just felt like for them, it was a perfect fit. And then me and my company, I felt like it was a perfect fit as well. And I felt like they reached out at the perfect timing. And, we talked about some things that I saw eye to eye with a lot of it. And I felt like that kind of just made our choices right there. It was nothing about like, oh, well, I want to be on this team and, you need to be on this team. We both support each other no matter what. So even if it is separate companies, it doesn't matter to us. It's a good fit. Don't get me wrong when we're on the same team, because it's like, oh, you can use these modes that I don't use anymore.
Exactly.
I'm going to miss that, but in the end, like I still have him here, and if I need something broken in, I can just have him throw it into a straight or something.
Skip it off the concrete a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was like, I mean, granted, Mason, we just talked about you being open bag. So, no matter what manufacturer you end up being sponsored by, Valerie, I'm sure that there will be inevitably a little bit of overlap. But that's got to be like a fun feeling though, to be talking molds that you guys are, you guys can both throw, or, oh, I like this mold, you're going to like it like this. Like, one of the last topics I want to touch on, it kind of ties into that a little bit, because what that does is it like creates a bond, it creates something to talk about. But like, one of the biggest issues that disc golfers face is burnout. And like, I can imagine like, for instance, going to the same team dinners. Like now you guys have to go to 2 different team dinners, right? So that's like a whole, like there are layers to this. So like, how do you, or have you even thought about it? How are you going to pace yourself or like schedule yourself to where the end of the season doesn't feel like absolute work and like a grind and torture? Because it does for everyone. You're not alone.
So at the ending of last year, after Worlds, we had both of our families there. And after Worlds, it was kind of like we got that taste of freedom. We got that taste of home.
Yeah.
And then that long, grueling drive up to Vermont in the RV. A lot of thoughts roll through your head.
Yeah.
A lot of memories of home. A lot of memories.
A lot of missing home.
A lot of missing home. And I feel like as soon as we finished Worlds, it was like, bam.
I miss that.
Hit.
Yep.
It hit. And I feel like that kind of, it definitely carried on with me through the rest of the year. And I know you and Alexis too, I know it kind of weighed you guys down for the last part of the year. And I feel like finishing out the year at the Tour Championships, it was like, all right, let's give it the rest of what we have left. And it was kind of like, let's just, do our best. Let's stay here for as long as we can, day by day by day. And then finally, like the long, grueling drive home feels like it's an hour long.
Yeah. So it feels like a race, honestly, if I have to put it. Like when you're first going, you're like, okay, this is kind of fun. I can just like slow down here. And then at the end, you just have to like push and grind through it. And it's the part that hurts the most because it's the most painful. But I feel like looking back now, it's maybe taking more breaks. And even if it is having to drop out of it and say, well, I'm going to take a flight home, just to like reset myself. Yeah. Because for me, home is where my heart is. Like when I come home, I just feel so much better. I feel the love from my mom, my dad, my grandmother, everybody, my little brother. And like they say, there's nothing better than home. Like, yes, I have Mason with me and I have Alexis and now my cousin, which is a great addition to the RV family, but it's not the same as, seeing your mom or hugging your mom or like when you have problems. Yes, I can call my mom, but it's a different feel. And for me, I just love being home. I'm not something that I have to go out and, be out all the time. That's just not me. I just rather be home watching Netflix if I can, or doing something that involves homey things. But I think it is that. I think it's just making that difference and realizing, well, I'm going to sacrifice, maybe not getting a couple of points here, but to go home and maybe I can play the rest out stronger.
No, I totally hear you. And I think that's a great mindset and perspective. I think it's something that like, as the tour goes along and as, players have access to like more funds and aren't like bootstrapping themselves across country. Yeah. You're going to see a lot more of that, like 2 months and then like 2 or 3 weeks at home, refresh, reset, come back. I don't really have a ton more on golf and sponsorships and all that good stuff, but you just mentioned it. You like sitting at home, watching Netflix. Give me some content recommendations. What have you been watching? What's like on the queue right now?
So I watched Wednesday, that show.
Oh, yeah.
Which
it was good.
I seen that when I got sick around Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, we caught a cold around Thanksgiving. But yeah, I sat there, I binge watched it for like 2 days. After that, what have we watched?
I don't know. I've been huge into watching live stream pickleball.
Yeah.
Whoa,
just like
shocker.
Just like watching the Disc Golf Network, they kind of have their own little network. So I've kind of been into watching that.
What else? There's been a couple of shows and movies. There's been a lot more movies. Yeah. And that's something that I think I'm really going to miss, is because our family room, we just all sit there, put a movie on, and we kind of just watch it. I fall asleep mostly halfway through. I did watch Avatar, the first one.
You watched Avatar, the first one?
Yep.
Like you hadn't seen it before, but you just watched it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Are you going to go? Is it even in theaters still, the second one? Are you about to go see that too?
I think it's in theaters, and we're all trying to make a plan to go and watch it because
tomorrow, right?
I think tomorrow, because some of my friends want to go and watch it with us, and they're like, you can't see it without me. So it's kind of just multitasking and shifting people's schedule around to see what fits. But I'm definitely excited for it.
I hear you there. No, I appreciate you guys' time though. You didn't have to do this, but you did. And so I super do appreciate it. One thing I am looking forward to though, in a couple weeks, Valerie, is your announcement to the company that you will be sponsored by. And I have a request. Maybe we come back for a part 2 of this interview shortly after you announce. What do you think? Fair?
Yeah, I like that idea.
Awesome. Cool. So that is about all I have for this interview, folks at home. We will be back in a couple of weeks at an undetermined date at this point for part 2, where Valerie announces her sponsorship. For all of you at home, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe for all things disc golf. Hey, thank you so much for being here a little bit after the interview. I wanted to give a special shout out to Mr. Mason Ford, who I just interviewed along with Valerie Mandujano, but they reached out a few days ago asking, if I was still making videos and if I did want to do an interview. And I've kind of abandoned it a little bit, and I feel bad. A lot of people at tournaments ask me if I'm going to do the interviews, and the answer is yes. But I have been working on a huge project on Disc Golf Network. Me and a quite sizable team at this point, relative to Disc Golf Productions, have been making Disc Golf Pro Tour on tour. Sounds a little weird when you say it like that, but it's one of my favorite things I've ever had the pleasure of making, and I think it's a really dynamic product. So if you have a few minutes, or maybe 45, go over to Disc Golf Network and check out any one of the episodes. They're all really solid, but they do take you all the way through the season. The Worlds episode might be my favorite, but it's because I had a hand in making it, so a little bit biased. But besides that, enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.